All right. I think everything's working correctly. We're using some new software today, so we're gonna be trying to navigate that at the same time. All right, fantastic. Looks like our Discord bot is appropriately putting out the video feed. Okay. We've got our chat open. Fantastic. Wonderful. Okay. Well, here's our intro. Hello and welcome to Grimlyte Games. I'm your host, Grimmy, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. So, towards the end of the year last year, after we took a break from some game jams as we got around the holidays, I decided to see what else everybody in our community might be interested in as far as extra content or other things just relating to game development and creativity in general outside of our game jams. And one of the things that some people suggested is they'd love to do a segment where, similar to the game jams, where I play through, review, and we talk about things that are working, things that aren't working, and ways to improve. We were going to utilize that same format and check out some of the stuff that people are making outside of game jams. There really isn't any limitations on what exactly can be submitted. For relative guidelines, I think people are mostly focusing around wave files, songs that they might be working on, artwork that they're working on inside and outside of games, and even other games that they've created for other jams or just in general for fun and shenanigans. So if that sounds like something that's super interesting to you, remember, if you want to be a part of this, all you have to do is join our community and submit some stuff into our review submissions category. And once a month, we'll be doing this as long as people like it and want us to keep going. So let's not waste any more time. We've got a few things today. And the first thing we're going to start off with are three different songs that were submitted by Sanjeet submitted these. So this will be kind of cool to check out and see what's going on. I do want to preface before I give any feedback on music and sound. My expertise in those areas is limited to I know what I like, and that's kind of it. Um, I did do some music theory back in my days of education, so I suppose we can probably talk a little bit about some of that, but definitely won't be able to dive in deep. But here we go. So this is song number one. There's also a write up that goes with this, so I'm gonna kind of read that out first for you. So in working on the songs, they were recorded using Audacity. Now, Sanjeet uses a Fender Squier Stratocaster electric guitar as their bass instrument, which also, as an aside, is really cool. That was my first electric guitar. Was a Fender Squier Stratocaster. Really, really cool. Neat guitars. Um, Good baseline models, good price, and they definitely have a really nice sound quality to them. So, what they are doing here is they connect to their laptop using an audio array, model AI042 in 2-out audio interface. So, if you're interested, that's something you can look into. There's definitely some settings that need to be changed so that way the recording works properly, but you can switch it back once you're done. What is their creative process? It's a lot of trial and error. So it doesn't look like Sanjeet actually writes songs on sheets, like with staffs and all that, and picking out where the various notes are going to go. But you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. I mentioned a little bit that I know somewhat about music theory. I'm the same way. I play by ear, sing by ear, all that fun stuff, which definitely isn't good for a professional standpoint. But if you're a little musically inclined, and that's just kind of how you go. So uh, let's check out what you got for song number one. Okay. So I set it to loop there while we were going through and checking that out. Oftentimes, when Sanjeet's recording music for their games, they're keeping in mind that it is going to be looped. This is something that they had mentioned in the post. So I wanted to see for myself kind of how everything went through, right? Because if this is in a game sense and you're going to have something that's, what, 32 seconds long, repeating, you definitely do want to make sure that the transition between the end of it and the beginning is fairly seamless, right? So ending on a similar note or a complementary note, so that way everything flows back into each other, absolutely is something you want to do. Let's listen to that again. I just kind of want to hear it a few times to see how everything's going through, so we can give some honest feedback there. Not bad, not bad. What? There does seem to be just a very slight moment there where it kind of disconnects a little bit. What the heck? Why is that doing that? Dun, dun, dun. Boom, boom, boom. Dun, 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 dun. But I like what you've got going on here. It's this nice little kind of like mellow rolling tune. I imagine that this would almost be something that you'd have kind of in the background as you're traveling from one area to another. I think the bridge section that you've got here, it sounds good. I like it, but I don't know if this note progression, especially as you're kind of coming up through this area right here. It doesn't seem to fit super well with the overall kind of like rolling tone of this. So that's definitely an area that I play around with a little bit. Your bridge between your intro going on here, and then how everything kind of wraps up at the end to then loop back through. But it works out. It's nice. All right, let's check out what you got going on for song number 2. Nice. You know, it's kind of funny. The first time I listened to that through, I thought that the link up between your last note and the first note, maybe it needed like a fraction of a second more shaved off of it to get that loop back perfect. But then the second time listening through, it sounded a lot more smoother in the transition. So maybe my ears were just kind of playing tricks on me there at first. But I'm liking the twang that you've got going on here. Trying to envision what kind of a scene that this would really sit well with. As I would say, instrumentally and standalone, just as, you know, a little riff. I like it. Where could we put something like this? I mean, I guess it probably could also work for some transition music from maybe one scene to another. It would be a nice little loading window. You know, as I'm going through this music and I'm doing this, I'm starting to have some ideas on potentially where we can take these review streams in the future. Maybe even getting some people who are much more musically inclined involved when we're reviewing various songs that members might be submitting. That could be something pretty cool. I do have somebody in mind who might be able to help me out with that. They are a music teacher and they play like all of the instruments. So that would probably be pretty cool. But anyways, let's move on. Let's check out song number 3, see what you've got going on here. Hmm. The first thing that kind of jumps out at me there, the distortion is just a little too much. You might want to ease back just a bit on there. It could be the recording or the way in which it's being recorded through the software, but it also just might be a little bit too much distortion. So something to keep in mind there. And I mean, maybe it's also just how it's coming through my headphones there, but there's almost like this crackly that's a little unpleasant on the end of each of the note as it's coming through here. Because the tone underneath it sounds very clean. And then when we get into here, I like this. I don't know why, but it almost kind of reminds me of something you might hear in like a Metallica song. I'm actually almost kind of like hearing some vagueness from Unforgiven, which one of my favorite songs by them. So I could see this being like a very tense moment, and I'd actually almost even say utilizing what you've got going on here and how it ends, but maybe doing something a little bit different in your lead up. This could be a really good start for even some boss battle music or some fight music in general. It's got that really cool electric guitar sound to it, for lack of better words. All right, so really cool there. I absolutely love the fact that you do your own song loops for your games. I don't think I actually realized that up until I read this, and then obviously heard the music that you played, and I'm starting to think back to the games that you've submitted for previous jams. And when I was playing through them and listening to the music, I'm like, oh, you know what? Yep, you did all the music for your games. That's really cool. So nice work, very nice work. I like that. So I do see that you've said here some of the effect that you add to the tone afterwards. You're doing that in post production. So that's good. That's great. So with what we're kind of hearing in that third song there, that's definitely something that you could probably clean up a little bit more. And if I'm assuming you have some really good headphones, but if you don't, for the editing process, you definitely should lean into that because you'll be able to hear those things a lot cleaner and a lot better when they're coming through for editing and revamping and revisiting. So cool. I usually record the songs on mono, which works best for me as it is amplified and we don't need to change any settings in Unity to make it louder. I don't know enough to speak to that on whether it would make more sense for mono or stereo. But all the songs that you've plugged into your games through Unity, I don't remember running into any issues where I thought, oh man, the distortion or the tone here is a little bit off. So perhaps that might also be kind of what I'm running into here, listening to song number 3. Is it could just because I'm listening to it, through stereo. So that may not translate the best for when it's in a game versus just somebody listening to the soundtrack outside of it. Cool. So we're going to move on. Sanjeet also submitted some artwork that they have been working on. Let's see. They use Krita for creating digital art, as it is free and has an excellent community support. I don't think I've actually ever heard of that software before, but that's pretty cool. They've got dozens of free brushes on their website. You can obviously pay a little bit more, get some premium brushes. So that's cool. Always love when there's really good free options out there, especially when you find a really good free option that has some pay option. When you can, definitely donate to the people who take their time to put those kinds of things together. Because I use Aseprite personally myself, but I also have a lot of Adobe programs just because I've had the most experience with video editing in Premiere. So I do also have Photoshop and a couple other things. I very rarely use Photoshop for my animation and my art, but I guess that's mostly just because I tend to do a lot in pixel art, so Aseprite's great for that. But yeah, Krita, so that's something that I would recommend some people check out. Okay, so you can link it up with drawing tablets too, which is great. Awesome. So what is your creative process for your characters? Why don't we open this up so while I'm talking about it, everybody can kind of see. I realize that the screen I'm looking at in the background, you guys can't actually see, so that probably wasn't working well for you. Here we go. Check this snake Ronin that we got going on here. So immediately I see a couple things that we're going to talk a little bit about, but I want to address first your creative process. So utilizing reference images, coming up with interesting ideas for characters depending on the type of game. This time, going for a cartoonish character and a snake Ronin seemed funny and appealing. I don't make several iterations of the same character. I keep modifying the same design. All right, cool. So let's see, what do we have going on here? So I like that you've included different shading for the image. Shading absolutely is one of those things that you want to work on, you want to get good at, because the better you are at shading, the more you're going to be able to get things to pop and really look good. So as we're looking at this, we always want to take into consideration with shading, where is our light source coming from? And based on that light source, how is it going to affect where we're going to cast shadows? I think, no, I don't want to ask Copilot. Can I draw on this? I think I can. We're sure going to try. Because I think it would be really cool if we can, no, I don't want any of that. I just want some very, very simple, there we go, markup. That's what I was looking for. Okay, so let's, for a second, imagine that we've got our light coming in from here, right? So then that means, wow, that's really, I don't want it to be that thick. Let's try this. There we go. All right, so we can imagine, right, that our light is casting down like so. So let's get rid of that. So if we can think about the light coming down like that, we can see right here with your hat. Obviously, this makes sense. We would have the most lit areas coming up here. But if we can kind of guesstimate what the shape of this hat is, it's probably going to have a very round shape to it, which means that it's going to be the most light here, which if we get a little bit of a shimmer effect, like really almost go with selecting from your color palette, these browns, these tans that you've got going on here, and then pick almost the lightest shade that you possibly can from that, and then just very gently edge the color of the hat and the brim to show right where the light is starting to peak and crest over. And then as you go on, it's obviously going to start to get a little bit darker, right? And then when we get to about the midpoint, that's where we would actually expect the light to stop casting on a round object if it's coming down from here. Or if we're trying to get it a little bit more here, we can almost, I'm using my hands to show this. I realize that the camera's not picking up on that. So if you can imagine, instead of the light coming down just like from a flat angle, but actually being a little bit more in front of the character, then we could absolutely see where the shadow would cast a little bit further over here. But for the sake of our eyes and what's going on, we would almost, with 2D drawings, want to make sure that we keep our light in the two-dimensional space as well. Because when you start playing around with the three-dimensional space and the lighting, if your image isn't also going for that three-dimensional look, it can cause, your shadows to look just a little bit off. right? So let's clear all that. So if we could for a second just imagine that this is where our shading would start to differentiate. And of course you can see here too the shape of the outline on the chest. That's where we would expect it to be as well. Now, with the face, we've got our shading coming on down here. But if we think about the light source and where it's coming from and how the hat is shaped, we would actually almost anticipate, let's see how this looks, that we would have some shading that looks a little bit like this, right? Coming down on the face. And then obviously the shape of the face, we'd have our shading over here as well. And then this part of the hat wouldn't be able to pick it up at all. Oh, I kind of like how that that ended up coming out with our highlighter. Cool, cool. Now, that being said, we've covered the shading on the face and whatnot. I do like the shading that we've got going on here. So we could even, look at something like this, darken that up a bit. And then as we get lower and lower, we're going to be starting to run into even darker shading coming over here. So that flows pretty good. We do like that. We can, let me see if I can get this even a little bit thinner. So the other thing that we can kind of look at too is we're trying to, bring shape to his outfit. So these areas right here, if we actually bring in our line work, right, then we can look at that and that can help guide our shading. Oh, I wanted that to be black, not blue. We can use that to guide our shading. Oh no, why did that go away? There we go. Okay. So then what would end up happening is right around the creases in the cloak is where we would have our darkest shades, and then it would start to lighten out again as we come further away from it. But obviously where the sun's hitting, it's still going to do that. But you can play around with that and you can create more three-dimensional popping in your images. And I used the dark color here just because that was the outline. But if you're looking at the internals, right? Instead of giving it that harsh, not harsh, that thick black outline, when we're inside, we can make those same kind of like shapes with a darker color of the shade that we're using. And then we can lighten it up, right? I think illustrating this point, this is not the best markup for illustrating this point, but what I'm trying to get across here is that we can make darker lines within our material, within our fabric, using the same color, but a darker shade of it to indicate where a crease or a fold might be. And then you can build your shading off of those creases and folds based on where your light's going to hit. But other than me drawing all over your very, very cool snake, Ronan, I do like this. I think this is really cool. I think this is a nice, fun little character concept that you've come up with. And I kind of hope that in one of your future games, we get to see Snake Ronan make an appearance as either a playable character or maybe somebody we can fight against or something like that. I think that would be pretty cool. And then last up, but most certainly not least, we've got the helicopter animation. So this helicopter animation is pulled directly from the Blender course that is offered within the Game Dev Rocket course by Blackthorn Production. Let's check out this helicopter animation. So I've never actually used Blender at all myself, so I don't think I can offer too much critique here, at least on your process, but we can watch this and check out and see what's going on here. Man, everything about that looked pretty darn smooth to me. Okay. Oh, actually, I wanna back that up for a second. The shadow looks a little off. Right, so try and illustrate what I'm looking at here. Let me see if I can pause this. There we go. Okay. So the first thing that kind of caught my eye was the rotor, the propeller spinning. and seeing where this is situated. So I'm not sure if inside of the program it will cast shadows just based on where you set your light source. I would imagine that's probably how that goes. But for some reason, this looks a little bit off to me with where the shadow's casting on the edge here. I mean, we've obviously got, you know, our pin here and the propeller's spinning. But as it starts to rise... Oh, never mind. It's not rising. That's just the camera pulling away from it. Okay, so that's kind of why it looked a little bit off to me. It was the camera pulling away. It wasn't that it was actually picking up yet, because this does look like the shadow is moving with it. But the other thing that I noticed that I want to point out, right about here, when it starts moving, it tips exactly like you would expect a helicopter to tip to move. So this is very realistic. Very cool. I like it. No, I think you did really good. I mean, the modeling looks very sharp. We've got some nice glossy finish on the glass. Oh, you know what? This actually might kind of illustrate the point I was talking about with highlighting and using light in your Snake Ronin. So do you see right here how you've got this really, really kind of like bright line coming down? And that gives this helicopter a little bit more shape to our eye, right? Because otherwise, how do you know that it has this kind of like rounded edge there? You don't. But because of the way the light's hitting it, and then you can see how it's much darker under here, we can very clearly start to see the shape of the helicopter's tail. So that's what I was trying to illustrate, or what I was trying to say when I was talking about using that highlight line on the edge of the hat to show where everything starts to bend. So cool. No, that's great. Really awesome. Great animation. That just forces me to believe I need to mess around with Blender a little bit more. So those are all of our submissions by Sanjeet. Thank you very much for your submissions. That was really cool. I really appreciate when you guys not only are willing to submit stuff, but you're willing to let me actually review it. So that's cool. We've got Kisami, who dropped off Kitchen Chaos for us to check out. So this is not a Game Jam game that they were working on, but this is instead a game that they were working on as part of a course that they were taking through CodeMonkey. So CodeMonkey's great. If you haven't checked out CodeMonkey's content, highly recommend looking into it. If you're in the game dev space, especially being a newer dev, indie dev, check out his stuff. It's awesome. Let's see what we've got going on here in Kitchen Chaos. Now, I have not previously played this, so I definitely have no idea what I'm getting into. I have not seen the video on Kitchen Chaos. I haven't seen CodeMonkey stuff on Kitchen Chaos, so all right. We've got a little bit of a bobbing and weaving going on here. Got quit and play. Let's see, does quit? Yep, takes us right out. Perfect. So already, that's a nice working quit button. Let's see what happens when we hop into play. There we go. Okay, all right. Hey, we do have some sound. Mega Burger. Recipes come in from customers. Prepare the correct recipe. Okay. Deliver plate to delivery counter. Okay, we've got WASD for moving. E, interact. F is alt. Alt. Alt is not alt? Maybe that means like alternating to something else. I bet we'll figure it out when we actually jump into the game. Press interact to continue. So that's great, right? So you can hit a whole bunch of other buttons, but unless you actually read this and you know, interact. E. 3, 2, 1. Recipes waiting. All right, here's us. This little blah, 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 blah. Looks like a customer wants a meat burger. So we need a bun. And we need a patty. Oh, where do I put the bun? Because I'm assuming we have to cook the patty, right? Okay. And then... how do we actually prepare it? Do I go over here and... no? I guess we'll try Alt. See what happens there. Okay, I can put that down. But then... well, okay, maybe we grab a plate. Alright, we put the plate down. Now let's put the bun on the plate. Let's put the burger on the bun. Ah, haha! Look at that. Oh my gosh. Wow. See, that actually makes a whole lot of sense. Alright, we've got that. We need cheese. I'm assuming we need some sliced cheese. Oop, I should probably take that off. Alright, let's... okay, Alt is the alternate. I got it. Okay, okay. So now we need this, this, and I think we need to chop that, right? Yeah, we'll chop the lettuce, pick up the lettuce, put that there. There's probably like a much more efficient way to make these burgers than how I'm making them. Let's get our plate. I love the music in the background. This is great. Okay, so we've got that. I'm going to assume that I have to put it in the same order that it is in this. So we're just going to do that. Cheese, lettuce, and tomato. Yeah, okay, look at that. Ready to deliver. Delivery success. We are definitely running out of time, though. We're not good fry cooks. Hey. See, you'd think, though, after playing this, I would figure out. I see you're watching me play now. You'd think that after a couple times through this, I would start to think, okay, hey, let's do this the correct way. So let's get our plate, right? Let's get our bun, put our bun on the plate, okay? Now, we're going to cook our patty. We're going to grab our cheese. Oh, I have how do I get rid of the cheese? Uh-oh. Burger, cheese, there we go. Got you. Okay, deliver. Woo. Order does not matter. Okay, good. So we can do it in any order we want. I'm gonna run out of time. Oh god, I'm a terrible fry cook. Four recipes delivered. Oh man. Hey, this is really simple and fun. And you know what? It's pretty intuitive too. So I will say that I want to hop back into it so we can kind of talk about what's going on here. So the premise of the game, right? We've got orders coming in, and then as these come in, we need to make them. And the idea is we only have this much time to get these orders in and out so the customers can eat their food and be happy. So I mean, right there, you've got all the recipes, right? You've got steaks, we've got a timer, we have a loop, and we have mechanics. Everything that you need for a very simple game, which I think this is a real big lesson that I need to personally take for myself, because I have so many half-finished, quarter-finished, three-quarter-finished projects that I've just never brought all the way to the finish line and set up. And a lot of that has to do with scope creep or trying to build something outside of what my actual expertise allows. So I love this. I love the simplicity of this. I love the fact that it is a complete game. There's nothing more that you need to really worry about here. So, good job. I mean, obviously, you know, Code Monkey put this... oh, whoops. Code Monkey put this together, so you know it's gonna be good. Yeah, we'll play through one more time, see how everything's going here. Alright, burger. We need cheese. Ah! Oop, hitting the wrong buttons. Oh my gosh. This is why I'm not a fry cook in real life. Although it's funny, actually, I love cooking in real life. I do all the cooking in our household. And you'd think in game format it'd be a little bit better than this. Some things that potentially could be added. Now, obviously, right, you're following a guide, But if you wanted to take this a little bit further, and I'm sure you could probably even do this with what's available to you within what you've created, right? You could have multiple stations set up. This, I would love for the Friar to take just a little bit longer, because I would have to believe that at a certain point, it would probably make more sense, especially if you were going to continue to like scale this game and give you a little bit more stakes in what to deal with. If you could have multiple burgers cooking at the same time, and maybe even like with the Alt key, you could control the speed at which it cooks. So you could start to set up multiple burgers going at the same time, and then obviously having a few more cutting boards, you could even like spam out a few of the different resources just to kind of have them on hand and ready to go. Like if we had 2 more cutting boards here, we could have another tomato, another lettuce, and then you could just like chop, 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 get that, chop, 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 right? And then you almost start to create this loop where you're moving around the kitchen, taking care of the various ingredients, and then starting another one where you can set everything up to then deliver it. And then of course, that starts to take you into multiplayer territory. Oh, hey, look at that, right as I said that, talking about multiplayer. Sanjit's letting us know that there may even be an expansion to the tutorial that starts to incorporate multiplayer and other stuff, so that's really cool. Oh, options. Oh, hey, look at this. Oh, and of course, this is the most, and I say this all the time, and I do want to say it again, because it's always nice to touch on this. Having an option to turn your sound effects and your music up and down, it's beautiful. Perfect. Have that in every game you make. Don't care what the level of the game is, if it's for a game jam or anything else like this. So simple. Get this in there. It makes a huge difference. I do, of course, wish I could go forward and backwards, but, you know, it is what it is. It's simple. It works. And then, of course, if we forget how to move around, we've got all that set up for us. Great. Awesome. I love it. That is such a cool, neat little game. I may actually have to borrow that idea for one of my projects, just to get something done, right? So I do want to touch on that a little bit more, because this has always been like one of the biggest issues for me as an indie game dev, and it's why I have very few projects on itch.io. I start and I don't finish for one reason or another, scope creep, or just trying to do things outside of my experience level and what I can accomplish. And one of my big goals for 2026, and hopefully with some of the video series that I'll be releasing later this year, we can A, keep me accountable to myself, and B, kind of show you a little bit of the processes I try and muddle through and figure out how to beat scope creep and all that other stuff myself, and then hopefully, you know, maybe put together some good lessons that'll help other indie devs in the future. But my plan is, I'm going to try to release very small, very simple games, 1 per quarter. And something like this is perfect. It has just a very simple game loop. You don't have to, you should take part in your own jam. That's not a terrible idea. And I think as we move on into the future, if we are able to get a few more guest judges in, I would feel a lot more comfortable participating, because I don't know, it would just be kind of weird participating in something that I'm judging as well. But I guess what I could do with that, right? I could just submit a game and then obviously not be in the running for who's going to win. But I like that idea. I like that idea a lot. I think, you know, that's something I am going to start doing. I'm going to start participating in my own jams. Obviously not being graded and or rated, but yeah. Oh, that's perfect. Great advice. Great idea. But before I hopped off on that tangent, just what I wanted to kind of end with. So what we're going to do is we're going to be releasing in quarters, very small, very focused, and I want to do a devlog series to kind of illustrate that as we go through, to help myself and to hopefully help other people as well. So hey guys, that has been our community and member review stream for today. We're going to be doing this once a month. So if you had fun, if you liked this kind of stuff, please feel free to join our community. It's free. There are no paywalls, and I will never paywall what we're doing here. We are a community for indie devs by indie devs. And you don't even have to be an indie dev to join us and have some fun with us. If you've got a propensity for anything within the gaming space, even just playing games, you should join. come hang out. Talk game, talk shop. It's good stuff. And then, of course, every month we're going to be doing one of these. And you can submit some stuff for me to check out, and of course for the rest of the world to see. By rest of the world, I mean, all the viewers of the Grimlyte channel. But anyways, guys, thanks so much for joining me today. My name is Grimmy, and this is Grimlyte Games. As always, I'll see you in the next one.